Hello and welcome to Boomer Bust NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm here with my usual co-host Shug, and it's just past Christmas. We hope you all had a great Christmas and you're going to have a good new year coming up. And for anyone coming into the championship for your playoffs, we hope you do well and don't so much take our advice, because we're just guys like you who get through on what we know, and that's very minimal knowledge, isn't it, Shug?
Speak for yourself, mate. I'm in a semi-final.
I know, and lucky for you, you could put your feet up this week having a bye, because our league has a 16 playoff. So, what are you thinking about your chances? We'll dig deep into it later in the show, but you excited, nervous?
Yeah, I think when he started off, I think I said this before on the original draft, I was like 10 for 11 for something. So, but I've managed to pluck out a good season, been on good form. So, it could go either way, really. I think any of the four left in contention could win it, to be honest with you. So, it's down to a wee bit of the breaks and a wee bit of luck, who gets injured, who stays healthy, but got a chance.
I know that too well myself. I know that,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll get on to that stuff later in the show. Like, it's quite hard to cover fantasy football stuff, given that the amount of people that probably won't be playing it anymore because they've missed out in playoffs or whatnot, or they're busy over the holidays. But just it's been a fabulous week football wise, and we'll start on a more serious topic. And you're sitting with your Miami Dolphins jumper on. You're a Miami Dolphins fan, Shug, and we're going to jump straight into the Tua stuff now. He's back in the concussion protocol for the third time this season.
Mhm.
He had a concussion at the start of the season and then famously came back onto the field. They blamed it on a neck injury.
Yeah.
And then the next week, just some horrible sights and horrible viewing when it was, I think they call it shielding, the way his fingers were bent back in front of his face. And it started beating the drum again for how bad concussion can be in American football. And it blights the sport. Now, with Tua, and not talking fantasy terms here, are we now at a stage where the Dolphins should just pull him for the season, given that this is a huge health scare?
It's it's hard for us to sit here and judge, really, because we obviously are no experts in that field. We don't know the ins and outs, but it's certainly worrying. It's happened a few times now. There's certainly, what's more important, Dolphins potentially getting a little run at the playoffs, where, as I've said, I don't see them going deep into, or to his long term health. Now, no matter what, a guy's long term health is more important. So, yeah, I'd say it's got to get to that stage. As I said, I'm sure there'll be experts looking at them. I'm sure there'll be a lot of eyes on the Dolphins, because it is now, what do you say, three times it is now he's got concussed?
This is the third time this season,
Yeah.
yeah. Which
They've got,
you've seen guys retire that have had three bad concussions before.
it's got to be a worry. It's got to be a worry about his long term safety as well. So, I don't know. I would hate to make a prediction or even make a criticism of the Dolphins, because we don't, as I said, we're no experts, we're no doctors, but it's certainly worrying signs. And I think when it comes down to it, if they are left with a tough decision where it's in any doubt, you've got to think the Dolphins will think long term, both for Tua's sake and for them as a team, and pull them for the season if that is the risk. But as I said, we've just got to wait and see how it plays out.
Yeah, and you say obviously we're not experts in the field. The only thing I go off of is like things I've watched to do with the NFL, like the Hernandez documentary and stuff, where they traced CTE and they were talking about how they couldn't trace that until after the person's deceased. Now, by all means, I'm not saying that about him, but this is the type of injury that concussion causes, and it is one of these things that at the end of the season, there's always something that the NFL tries to improve on. They try to get better on it, and I think
Mhm.
concussion's going to be all over it this season, given that the optics of it doesn't look good for the sport at all. When you see, like, especially to a second concussion, where it was just a horrible sight. And I remember seeing the movie, is it called Concussion, the one with Will Smith, and he's a
Yeah.
Nigerian doctor. And he gave the example, it was like he had a small apple in a bottle, and the bottle was half full with the water, and he was showing when the bottom of the water hit the front of the apple, which was basically played the part of the brain in this one, flew to the front of the bottle and hit the bottle, and that's what he was saying gives the effect on the brain that causes concussion. And I know they try and do more with the helmets and the technology which they're trying to use, but what more can they do? Is it a case of, right, if a player's in a concussion protocol for 3 times, their season's done, because we can't risk the long-term health effects, because there is going to come a case, and there's probably been cases before where the NFL's been sued over
Yeah,
concussion-type injuries.
yeah, and we're seeing it in pretty much every sport now. I'd imagine we're seeing more of it. I know in kind of our British football, concussion is starting to become, they're starting to take it seriously, and quite rightly so. As you said, this maybe is not something that affects a player next season or the season after. It's something that affects him maybe 20 years from now when he's sitting with his kids and grandkids, So it is a very, very serious topic. And you'd like to think that there is some sort of protocol. You cannot just keep getting a concussion throughout a season. It can't be just, or just let's just check he's okay, get him back out there as quickly as possible. When it becomes repeated concussions, it cannot be good for a guy's health, no matter how severe those concussions are. They are concussions, and as I said at the start, we're no experts, but it's definitely got to be worrying signs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something's got to change. Something will change. It
yeah,
definitely will change. But on the football side of things for the Dolphins, if he is out for the season, I'm saying it's cut and shut for the Dolphins, because you remember back when we spoke about the earlier concussions that Tua did have, when he was missing, the Dolphins looked a different team for the worst.
yeah. With Bridgewater coming, I think it does pretty much signal the end of the season for them. With two in, at the start, at the very start, I predicted that they'd get into the playoffs, possibly win a game, but wouldn't go much further than that. And I think if Tua continued to play, I think pretty much on track for that. But yeah, I think if Bridgewater comes in, I don't really see it. When you look at the evidence, when Tua doesn't play as much, he didn't have a good game on. I forget, but you lose track of your days.
It is
I have no idea
100%.
what day it was, but Christmas night, he didn't have a great game. But you take him out of that, you pretty much end all chances of their season.
Yeah, Teddy like a bridge over troubled water. But we'll stick with quarterbacks and injuries, and Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts is still struggling with a shoulder injury. The Eagles need one more win to be the number 1 seed, which would mean that they would get a bye in the playoffs and skip that wild card round.
Mhm.
Now, Minshew came in the lose to the Cowboys. Um, and are now considering Jalen Hurts day to day and saying that he should play. Now, this is one that probably would have fantasy implications, because I reckon there's a lot of folk either in the semi-finals, if you're like us and we're a bit crazy and run the full 18 weeks, or you're
Yep.
like folk that have got the championship weekend in week 17 that they've got there because they've got Hurts at quarterback. Now, would you go and get Minshew as a handcuff and keep him as a backup? Because he scored, 22 points this weekend, which is still a good enough return.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of reality, he had quite a few mistakes, I believe. But when you look at the fantasy points, he was well worth it. So yeah, I'd say I think Hurts. If I was to predict it, put my neck on the line just now, I'd say Minshew will stay in this weekend. I think they'll rest. I don't think there's any, as much as it's important for the seeding for the playoffs, I don't think it's important enough to risk him. So I think they'll stick with Minshew this weekend. So I think if you've got him, keep him. If you can get him, maybe worth it having him in your roster. I think he's obviously got to play again
Yeah.
this weekend.
He's a good enough replacement, and he's still got guys like AJ Brown, Devonta Smith round about him, who I thought were excellent the other night against the Cowboys. Dallas Goddard as well, back off IR, playing really well. And I still think he's a good plug and play, but Hurts has just been the rock star this year. And I fully believe that the Eagles could still do well with Minshew. I still think they can go and get a win. I mean, they're at home to the Saints, and
Yeah,
it's not like the Saints have been ripping up trees this season.
yeah, exactly. So I think they'll be absolutely fine. And as I said, if you go and put Hurts in and his injury gets worse, and you've done it just to get the number one, just to get a better seed, then it's a stupid move for me. I think they'll have, as you said, more than enough that they could still get the win without him.
I know. We talk about like replacement quarterbacks and that, right? So Lamar Jackson goes out for me. Jared Goff has been a rock star for me, mate. He's kept me in the league so far. But who would have thought I would have said this? Like, Steve Jackson comes back fit. I'm still sticking with Jared Goff. Like, last week, everybody would say, drop him, drop him, drop him. He's out and scores 25.7 points against the Carolina Panthers. Now, am I right in saying you had him a game earlier in the season as well?
I had him earlier, and he done well for me as well. The probably at that stage of the season, the Lions weren't consistent enough. But he's he's been a solid option in fantasy.
See, that's the thing. Like, Lamar Jackson, like, who would have thought we would have had this conversation at the start of the season? Lamar Jackson hadn't scored any more than 20 fantasy points since week one, right? Jared Goff has put up more than 20 points in 3 of his 4 last games.
Yeah, yeah.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. He's playing out his skin.
I'd be kicking myself for getting rid of him, but Kirk Cousins has done well for me as well, so I can't really complain for that. He's, as much as he's an up and down player, fantasy wise again, been really good for me.
See, that's the thing, Kirk Cousins as well. He breaks the rules in fantasy football because you think the ones everyone talks about are the guys that can use their legs, like your Josh Allen's, your Patrick Mahomes, your Lamar Jacksons of the world. Even, I don't know, you could even throw Kyler Murray into that bracket, but you get nothing from Cousins' legs. But you look at the weapons round about him in terms of guys like Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, that are just picking passes out there, left, right, and centre.
Exactly, and he seems to get 30 odd points for me quite regularly.
I know. I picked up KJ Osborne this week. I was struggling with injuries and stuff, put him in, and crashing burn. He just had a terrible game. I think he got something like 4 points. It's one of the ones. Sometimes you've just got to roll with a hot hand, and he had been hot. I think it was 30 odd points the week previous, and it just didn't happen for him that week.
Definitely.
Ruined Christmas, asshole. But yeah, and another quarterback that's not really having a good time of it, Zack Wilson.
Yep.
There's another one back to the start of the season. Who thought we would have been saying that Zack Wilson would be QB3 behind Mike White at QB1 and Joe Flacco at QB2? I mean, he was inactive the other day.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a good few weeks ago we were talking about the situation there, and we thought, I certainly said at the time, I thought they might stick with Zack Wilson, give him more of a chance, keep him in there, but took him out, and now he finds himself QB3. It seems as if he's lost confidence, his coach lost confidence in him, the team and the fans have lost confidence in him. You can only see it going one way, can't you? I think it's probably going to be a fresh start's needed for him.
I think so. Like, it just shows you how cutthroat like the NFL can be. This guy's like, what was it? Their first draft? Was he number 2 draft pick 2 years ago? The Trevor Lawrence year, yeah. And everyone was saying like he's the white knight coming into the Jets here. He's the guy that's going to change this franchise. And it's just this season. Like, see when he was out with that knee injury and Flacco came in, and I had the feeling at the time that they'll look a better team with Flacco. And I also think for fantasy owners, any of the Jets players, especially Garrett Wilson, that seeing Zack Wilson go out has an effect on Garrett Wilson, because he doesn't seem to see the amount of targets when it's White at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. But again, as I said, Zach, just the stage the team was at, I didn't see them changing when Zack Wilson was starting, and now to fall that far behind at the year's QB3 and pretty much out the picture it's crazy when you think about it. You're right, it's cutthroat. It's unfortunately it's that industry. They get paid the big bucks, and that's the way it happens so far. So there's no doubt he could restart his career, I think, but it's going to have to be elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's a weird one, and we spoke as well about folk that might have Jalen Hurts out this weekend, or let me think. There's like so many quarterbacks missing this weekend. I seen one earlier. Let's see as well. Tua obviously been out, so anyone that was riding them right to their championship final and their playoff final that might be looking for quarterback, I think Mike White is a good pickup and a good start for this week that could fall in. They've got a really good matchup against, I will tell you right now, can't find it now. Yeah, so they're up against the Seahawks, who are 22nd in the league against the quarterbacks. They're not being the greatest. I know Terry Williams had a great season for them, but they're not the finished article in defence. So I even think Mike White could be a good option at
Yeah.
quarterback if you're really struggling. But like I say, fantasy football news and advice is very scarce this week, given that it is this time in the season, and we'll miss it. It's bittersweet, isn't it?
Aye, absolutely. It goes in quite as much as you look forward to the proper NFL playoffs. You do miss it when the fantasy comes and your decisions sort of. I even had the bye week this week, and it just wasn't as enjoyable. Like
Yeah.
it's just as you sat. It was good in terms of you got to watch games and properly enjoy the games rather than just constantly looking at your app and looking at the scores. But it does take away that bit of excitement, eh?
Yeah, so there is part of me, like you, we're competitive as hell, but it can be so frustrating at
Aye.
times that you're like sitting to yourself and saying, I can't wait till this is over so I can actually enjoy this.
I know it's like you spend as much time looking at your phone and looking at the points as you do at the TV screen, which does get annoying. Um, so I'm actually looking forward to enjoy the last couple of weeks of our playoffs, and then actually enjoy the proper NFL playoffs, and then the Super Bowl comes after it.
Yeah. I wonder what we'll talk about on here. We'll need to come up with something.
Okay, I'll bring a paper. We
Imagine that. We just
play
go.
horoscopes.
Here, do you know what we should do? We should do like a Dear Deirdre, where folks send us in their issues anonymously.
Aye, that'd be good. Don't know what kind of advice we'll give them, but
Do you know who would send us them in? Our number one fan, Toasty.
aye, 100%.
He'd be all over it. My internet is currently struggling at 30 megabits per hour, and my Warcraft raid seems to be affected by it. What should I do, guys?
Grow up.
I know. That guy had me relegated this weekend, and I've not had a peep out of him since I won my game. So
That's what it's all about in these leagues. You just giving each other a bit and then worrying what's going to happen. It's brilliant.
you're only saying that because you've been fucking relentless this week. You had me down as well.
I did.
Yeah, I'm not safe yet. We're not. We'll talk about that. But
You're clawing your
nah,
way
I know. So from a guy on his way out, Zack Wilson, to a guy that could be back in his way in, and I know we touched on it the other night, but Rob Gronkowski,
up. Yeah,
right? Can you see him winding up anywhere? I'm looking. It might not be the
Kieran.
Bucks. What? Yo, did you freeze it?
You froze as soon as you said Rob Gronkowski.
Ah, it was cool. We'll just roll it. Gronk, I think I'm right in saying the Bucks are 2 games away. They can still make the playoffs. It's likely they will.
Mhm.
I think we're going to see him back there. There's no smoke without fire. I think we're going to see him back there, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think there'll be a lot of like owners and stuff try and pick him over to their place. But
Yeah.
for me, I think we'll see Gronk in the playoffs.
Again, it's one thing for them. Roll with dice. They've not really got too much to lose on that one, to be honest with you.
I know.
And he's probably thinking the same. He's probably thinking he's maybe not got the appetite for a full season. He's thought of just so it could happen. Could happen.
Imagine being that good that later in your career you can just pick and choose when you want to go and win a Super Bowl ring.
I know, unbelievably. Just like it's, you wonder what kind of training he's done on his own. If he's staying sharp, if he's staying ready, or if he's just been like
I think he's just been a booze bag.
done a bit.
out and on it and doing what he wants, and you see
Aye.
him being that type of person. But we're going to nip to a wee break and check out our sponsors. But on Gronk Shug, right, he has had an offer, or what he did say on Kay Adams' podcast, that he's had an offer, right? So before the break, my question to you is, the offer made to Gronk to come back and play for them, what did they offer him specifically? I see the cogs turning in your head without actually seeing inside it just now. But hold your answer for now, and we'll get to it after the break. But we'll just take this moment to thank our sponsors, Manscaped. It's obviously too late to get it in time for Christmas because that's been. But just wholeheartedly, the products that we've been using for the past few weeks and stuff have been fantastic. Earlier on today, I actually used the weed whacker, which is for my nose and my ears, because don't know about you, Shug, I'm getting to that age where I'm getting wee weeds or wee hairs popping out my nose and my ears. Here, I've had some grey ones as
Are you
well.
feel them in the cold as well, don't you?
Aye, you're right. Aye, you're right. Sometimes I think it's like a spider getting in my ear. But like, the product itself, the weed whacker, it's essentially a nose and ear trimmer. It also comes with proprietary advanced skin safe technology to protect you from like wee cuts or anything in delicate areas. It's also waterproof as well, so you can take it in the shower with you. But I've been thoroughly impressed with the stuff that we've had and we've been using. Even the boxers this time of year, I got a hell of a lot of underwear for Christmas, and nothing comes close to these things. It is like top of the range stuff, eh, Shug?
Aye, they're top drawers, to be fair.
Top drawers. They're fantastic, but we've still got that deal on if you're still looking to spend your Christmas money on something and you are a fan of manscaping or looking after yourself. And on the male side of things, female too, we've still got Boomer Bus 20 on, and that'll give you 20% off and free delivery. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code BoomerBus20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code BoomerBus20. That's at manscaped.com. Okay, make sure you're doing it, guys. That offer won't be on too much longer. But Shug, looking back to sorry, I do this every single week.
You asked me a question and
I,
forget
I
about it.
yes, correct.
Right,
This is where we struggle without producer David. The whole thing goes to shit, doesn't it?
100%.
That guy holds the ship together. So before the break, I said Gronk's actually had an offer. We don't know specifically what owner it was, but what was it that was offered to him specifically? Do you know any
So
idea?
I'm thinking it's on the. I'm thinking it's something other than money. I think it's something material.
You're
So
getting there?
I'm gonna go with a certain car that he was offered.
No,
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 on the right tracks.
not really. No, not
No,
really. No. So, what he claimed he was offered was the number 69 as his jersey number, and that's so that the referees would have to announce player number 69 is an eligible receiver.
fuck's sake.
It's the most Gronk thing ever, isn't it?
Aye, 100%.
I know, but we spoke about all the football and that over the Christmas period. Their red zone and Christmas Eve, I thought was brilliant.
Yeah,
I was trying to play it good with getting all the shopping out the way in a day out during the day, and then watching red zone, and amongst everything else, how busy I was. But it was fantastic. But there was a few shockers in terms of fantasy football, and I'm going to come to you about a man first here. You have slated him all season.
yep.
Cam Akers, talk to me. He has just
Oh,
sent some guys into the championship playoffs.
I'm devastated that I don't like the guy. Don't have any time for him. He was my season's turned around since I got rid of him, but now he seems to be really hitting form. That's just the beauty of it. You can look at guys' seasons are dead and buried, and they can just turn it around. But Cam Akers is one of those guys throwing up points now for fun.
And it was a weird one because we expected Kyran Williams to be the man at the Rams, and then Akers has came back. Look, let's not forget, a few weeks ago, this guy had been basically banished. It looked like he was gone.
Yeah, hundred
Um,
percent.
and then all of a sudden, 34.7 fantasy points.
Yeah,
Sorry, anyone that had to hear that. Um, 34.7 fantasy points, and that's from 3 touchdowns, 118 yards as well.
hmm
Up against a Broncos defense, which over the piece, like, don't get me wrong, the Broncos have been terrible. Over the piece have been the best defense against run, like, or amongst it in the league.
yeah,
Now, week 17, he's up against the number 25 defense and the Chargers against the run. Week 18, he's up against the number 31 run defense and the Seahawks. Like, whoever's picked him up and they've put him in the squad must be laughing now.
yeah, 100%. And I think in our league he's actually been taken by Toasty.
That's correct. So there's a
So
chance you could come up against him in the championship final if you get there.
that would be horrific karma. If he was the one that beat me, I would never live it down.
You could just see in real life terms, he'd be up in front of you, cupping his ears, like, how'd you like me
Oh,
now?
it'd be horrible. Horrible. Not even worth thinking about.
I know, but this is like the craziness of fantasy football, and this season will probably be remembered for that if he goes out and does it again. That he was probably just wasting away in most waiver
Yeah,
wires.
100%.
I know. And Christmas Day as well. So the way our league runs, top six go into basically championship playoffs. Bottom six go into a relegation playoff, which positions, am I right in saying, let me think, 7 and 8 would get a bye week in the quarterfinals and then the semi-finals. So if you're playing in the quarterfinal, there's a 3 and 4 chance that you go down. So I was 60 points clear going into Christmas Day. Coming into Christmas Day, my opponent had Tyler Higbee, DeAndre Hopkins, and Justin Herbert to play. Now you're thinking there, Shug, Hopkins is going to go off, as he always does. Herbert should be a solid 20 points, and Higbee doesn't really do anything often, does he?
Nah.
And then all of a sudden, 2 touchdowns right away on Christmas Day, and you guys were giving me it tight, and I had just finished my Christmas dinner. I was a few beers deep at that time, and I thought I was gone.
You were in trouble. Big trouble.
I know, but that's how crazy it is. Hopkins flops last night. Herbert flops, and then I scrape through on something like 15 or 16 points, and that's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Higbee comes out of nowhere. He's probably put other guys into championship playoffs as well.
Yeah.
Is anyone else you like from the weekend, Shug?
Out of my team, I wasn't really paying too much attention to mine because I didn't have a game. But Devin Singletary, we spoke up last week being important. Buffalo Bills went strong on the running game, and he put up some great points. He's had an up and down season, so he's one of those guys that you can't rely on to be the main man every week. But
Yeah.
certainly had a strong week. I think it was about 20 points he got for me this week, which is a solid return, given how many options the Bills have. To get 20 points at Singletary is good going. So he was a good one for me this week.
See, that's what you're saying there as well. They were up against Chicago. James Cook
Yeah,
also put up 17.8 points, and weren't we saying on Thursday it was to be something like minus 23 Celsius, which is insane. Like, if
yeah,
that's over here, the whole country's coming to a standstill, although America did.
aye, aye.
So they did favour that run game heavily. I think I've got Gabe Davis, and he only scored something like 11 points. I'm not counting on him at all now, and that was including a touchdown.
Yeah, yeah.
So poor player. Talking about tight ends and stuff like that, Shug. Don't know about you, but I've already spoke about Tyler Higbee. What's it, Evan Ingram? Evan Ingram has been
Mhm.
on fire. Do you have him? Do you have Evan
I don't
Ingram?
have him. No, I've got Knox at tight end.
Yeah, he was decent enough, but like we said,
He's
he favoured the run game.
he's done well for me pretty much every game. The last 3 games, sorry, he's done really well for me. Knox. Another one I've been kind of looking at. Obviously, I think somebody else has him, but Darren Waller. I think
Yeah.
he's been decent recently. He's a kind of one that you'd be unsure whether you'd put him in. I think they're up against San Francisco this week, so it's a tough matchup for him. But he's been one of the tight ends that since he came back in, he's been putting up decent points.
See, he was on IR for a while, and then all of a sudden they're missing Hunter Renfro. They're also missing.
Yep.
They were missing someone else. I can't remember. Anyway, he then basically comes into that role where he becomes essentially a wide receiver, where he starts to see a lot of targets, and
Yeah,
he's a good player. He is definitely a good player. Sits at tight end rank number 34 at the moment, which is a bit of a disservice given how long he'd been out for. But like that weekend there, 9.8 points. Weekend previous, week 15, 13.8 points. Don't get me
mhm,
wrong, he's up against San Francisco this coming week, which you don't really
yeah,
fancy him to do too much.
yeah,
Other tight end, George Kittle, on fire, man. On absolute fire.
yeah. He's
I,
brilliant.
I, I love Kittle, man. He just seems like a good guy. I follow him on social media, and he's just a bit, yeah, it's just a bit of a nutcase.
Nice. You wonder if it will ever boil over.
Ah, God. We're nearly at the half an hour mark. It took you 29.5 minutes. Um, but there you go. Week 16, 30 points exactly. 6 catches from 8 targets.
Yeah.
Week 15, 25.3 points. And that was 4 catches from 5 targets. He had 2 touchdowns in each of the games. Like, what more could you want from your tight end? Week
Exactly.
17 up against Las Vegas, number 23 against the tight end. Week 18 for the folk that play Week 18 up against the Cardinals, number 32. Like, you're laughing, man.
Aye.
Excuse me, I had to cough there. But no, it's been good for tight ends. But one guy that's completely and utterly flopped this season, Mark Andrews. Like, we're talking a top tier tight end. Saying that's maybe a disservice to someone like who name look for Travis Kelce, who is proper top tier. But you would put in fantasy terms, you would put him up there. Wait there, Shug, you've muted 2 seconds. Can you take yourself off mute? There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So Mark Andrews, there's a guy you should be counting on. It's usually drafted in deeper leagues in the top 3 rounds of each draft. That he's just completely and utterly caved in this season. Like, God knows what's happened to him.
I know. He's, as you said, he's one of those that probably just falls in between top and second tier, somewhere in between there. He's not your elite, but he's certainly up there. But no, he's just not produced, has he? And as we said at the start of the season, it was very tough to find a tight end that would be consistent. Now I think you're sort of finding a couple. For me, Knox last few weeks has been good, but it's very tough to predict what's going to happen at tight end.
I know, and I think Andrews, in the sense that a lot of owners will feel let down. He's probably suffered at the loss of guys like Lamar Jackson at quarterback and Snoop Huntley coming in and not really producing. And all in all, it's been a poor season for the Ravens, albeit they still snuck into the playoffs. Like, God knows how. I think they're an extremely poor side. There's much better teams out there. And yeah, for me, like, Mark Andrews, sort of owners will be disappointed. But looking ahead to the games in week 17, Shug, I don't feel there's much point in us doing start them, sit them, because, like we said at the top of the hour, there's probably not as many people playing fantasy football as we expected, and there won't be as many people used. But I don't know about you, but I look at streamers in terms of like defense and kickers, and probably not go deep in kickers, but I'm loving the Giants defense coming into this weekend. They're at home. Yep, they're up against the Colts. I mean, I stayed up late last night and watched that Colts game, and I thought to myself, if they start Nick Foles next week, I'm going to be looking to get the Giants defense, especially I'm a Giants fan, and if we win this, we're in the playoffs. Like, I am laughing that they're starting Nick Foles. It was easily the worst quarterback performance I've seen this season.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there. On the other side of that coin, I would have Dan Jones as my quarterback potentially this week, because I don't think the Colts defense is up to much either. I think looking at what Kirk Cousins done to them a couple of weeks, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, the last week.
Yeah, totally my bits.
Totally bits. So I think on the other end of that matchup, I think you're looking at Giants players as having a decent day. So totally agree with you there.
Yeah, I seen that. Let's see. I think a lot of people are all over the Giants players. In terms of defense as well, the Jacksonville Jaguars are up against the Houston Texans as well.
Yeah.
Once they get, I know it is away at the Texans, number 31 in the league against defense. They put up 14 points week 16. Jaguars put up 12 points week 15, 12 points week 14. Then before that, they didn't do so great. So they have been consistently good, and they are a good young defense that the Jaguars are still pushing for that playoff place, and they're not going to stop. So for me, Jaguars as well, really good pickup if you stream your defense.
Yeah. Another good one I was kind of looking at for the weekend is DJ Chark.
Yeah, he seems to have come alive.
I think it could be a Chark attack.
Yeah, he's found a bite.
I think he's been good recently. At the start of the season, he was one of the ones we kind of predicted would do well. He was quiet for a number of weeks, and now he seems to be coming on his own. Um, I think apart from last week, he didn't have a great week last week, but apart from that, 3 weeks before, he's been averaging nearly 40 points. So he'd be a good one. He's got up against the Bears this week, so it's not the worst matchup in the world, certainly not. So I think it could be chalk infested waters.
I love that. I absolutely love that, man. Oh, but as well, you said in Daniel Jones there as well. I'm absolutely loving Isaiah Hodgins at the Giants. I
Yeah,
think he was over the Bills last season. He got 11 targets. Now, we always talk about double-digit targets is always a good sign that a player is favourable to the quarterback. Now, the Giants have got nothing at wide receiver. They're going to have to play out their skin to make the playoffs. And I did say the Colts look terrible,
yeah,
absolutely terrible.
not
They'll
good.
look like a team that's playing for the first pick in the draft next season.
Aye, definitely. They're not great at all. So I'd fancy the Giants strongly there.
I know. I really hope so because when you look as well, when I watched the game last night, I think the Chargers defense had picked up 6 points in the first quarter, and it was 2 interceptions, 2 sacks. And when you think of the Giants and the way guys like Kayvon Thibodeau are playing, they're going to be all over Nick Foles. It was like watching a pensioner run a bit of care home. It was
Yeah.
so tough to watch. Saying that though, how many pensioners run about a care home? I don't know if that's the best analogy. But now, looking ahead as well, Shug, so talk to me. You're in the semi final. How are you feeling about it? Like, what you
Yeah,
like the look of?
as I said, it could go either way. There's a few things that could impact me negatively. I'm looking at just now. No, things like I don't expect Singletary to have a big weekend this weekend. I think he's got a very tough matchup against the Bengals. Looking otherwise, I've got Tyreek Hill in there. Now, if Tua's out, that could have a negative impact on his points, and that could be huge for me. But I think everybody at this stage of season's got those sort of problems and dilemmas. So the way I saw it was my first goal was to escape relegation this year, like everybody, and get into that. Then the next game's get into the playoffs, give yourself a chance. So got every chance of winning it. Good bit of fun as well. It keeps interest up to the later weeks of the playoffs. So, anything can happen.
I know, it certainly does. And the way you are just now, so am I right in saying you made the playoffs last season as well?
No, I just missed out the playoffs last year. Remember, there was a bit of controversy around my
Yeah,
position.
there always is.
So
Always is, mate.
for the listeners, what happened was Toasty in our league was already through, and he was playing against the guy who was battling out for a place in the playoffs with me. And what he done was he changed his full starting team and
Rested
weakened
his
it.
team.
He rested his team, weakened his team, and threw the game. Now, in a huge act of karma, the guy that got in ended up beating him to the championship. But I was done out of a playoff place. But this year, back in it, back in amongst the elite, and could be winning my second title.
I've got my fingers crossed for you. Saying that, nah, I want to see Pollock win it.
Aye,
Parade the championship in Australia.
another shrimp on a Barbie.
Stevie Ponsonby. No, but see, like, I don't know about you, but like, you get to this point in the season and you start thinking about, right, what will I do differently next season in next year's draft? And for me, I just think that the emergence of like how well rookie running backs have done. I think I'd be
Yeah.
tempted to go wide receiver in my first round next season.
That's what I done this year. Went Tyreek Hill this year, so I think it's. And again, I wasn't sure if it was the right move for me because I did miss out on a lot of good running backs. But I think outside one or two running backs, I think it's very much been spread out. As you said, there's been rookies doing well. It's not just been down to one or two elite. There's been everybody's had their kind of share of it this season. So it's probably not a bad shout. Another one I think I would place even more importance on a quarterback.
See, I was going to say that too.
hmm
I
I think so many years you say, "Oh, I'll wait and see who comes up. I'll give it three, sometimes four picks before I look at quarterback," and it's probably the wrong thing to do now. You've probably got to look at quarterbacks earlier.
Yeah, you look at the folk that have got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. they're all score. Even for you, Kirk Cousins, and don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I wouldn't go picking Kirk Cousins up in early rounds, but
No, no. But if you could get, as you said, a Burrows, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, if you could get them early, you're never letting go of them, are you?
you're guaranteed 20 plus points a week. Like, why
Exactly.
wouldn't you?
Exactly.
So if you've got, say for example, you've picked up Justin Jefferson and you pick up Josh Allen, I think you're guaranteed to score
Yeah. But
50 points a week with these two players. Don't
yeah,
get me wrong, that's just based purely on guesswork and seeing what these guys get from them. But
yeah.
these guys
My
are fantasy superstars.
my only thing is we've seen a lot of quarterback injuries this year, so I'd probably be looking to add more depth in there next year. If you can pick up two quarterbacks and stash one, then you're laughing. Um,
But
but
the likes of Justin Fields, like how long did he hang about waivers and then all of a sudden he just exploded, man?
yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
it's it's been a strange fantasy football season in terms of the guys that we thought would go crazy haven't went crazy. Like for me, Joe Mixon just hasn't done it. You look around the league as well, probably Alvin Kamara
Yeah,
as well.
hasn't done it at all. He's had these wee hot and cold spells, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And he's not been the elite level that you thought he would be.
For anyone watching on YouTube here, Shug, are you giving us a wee tour here? I see a
Uh,
snowman next to you.
I'm actually about to run out of battery, so that's why I was moving. But I've got a snowman right here.
That could have got awkward. What's his name?
Do you want to name him?
Right, let's name him Nick Foles because he is not moving anywhere.
He's melting under pressure.
Yeah, there you go. Have you ever met anyone that says Jack Frost is like a top 5 Christmas movie?
That's
Because
honestly one of the most depressing films you'll see.
man, anybody that says Jack Frost is a good movie, don't trust them.
Nah. See what would help if the guy was likable.
Ah,
The main guy and it was likable, but you just want him to melt.
a happy ending in many ways.
Aye.
But nah, sum up your fantasy season so far before going into this championship playoff.
Massively overachieved.
You have.
Massively, I'd say scattergun approach really from me. Done a lot of trading, took a few chances, and end up doing really well. Hit form at the right time. It was that tight this season that it could have went either way. I mean, me and you pretty much were neck and neck the full season, and
Yeah.
then it was just the last couple of weeks.
I ended up 10th and you ended up second.
So last couple of weeks, I just pushed you off a cliff.
I know, oh
But
God, man.
but listen, I think always are getting to a stage now when we all pretty much have a base knowledge of the game. We've got a sort of knowledge of the players, so it's now became a stage where it's very, very tight between all the teams, and it can go either way. So uh, I've done pretty well so far, but still a long way to go if I want to win this championship.
I know. You need to do well on waivers, but I've got mine all kitted out. It's a dry market, but you'll be all right.
Aye,
I've
aye,
got faith in you, but
aye.
we'll not hang about too long. If you've lasted this long, like thank you very much, and please make sure to subscribe to us. Please make sure to follow for any of your podcast apps, and also like and share and tell your friends because it makes a difference to us. We've been hard at it all season with it being our first season in the podcast. But Shug, I'll not keep you too long. Good luck this
Yep,
weekend,
yep.
your
Same,
championship playoff.
same to you. Try and hang in there.
I'm trying my best, everything in my power too. But thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.